Hi, Tammy Kabell here, founder and CEO of Career Resume Consulting. And today I want to give you the one thing, the one secret that above anything else will help you get that all-important face-to-face interview, that face-to-face meeting with a decision maker. Okay? So this actually came from someone when I was doing a recent speaking engagement. So I do speaking engagements, and someone asked me, if you were to give one piece of advice to someone on how to win a phone interview, to get that face-to-face interview, what would it be? And I really had to think about that, because not getting the face-to-face interview could leave you hanging, and especially if you don't hear back from the recruiter or HR representative that you're talking to, or even if you're talking to the decision maker on the phone but you never get past the phone call. So if that's a problem for you, that really could result in you not getting a job for months and months. As a matter of fact, the average is 12 to 18 months to get a six-figure position in the United States these days in 2016. So I don't want you to be that statistic. I want you to be able to move past that phone interview into the face-to-face interview. So I want to give you the one piece of advice that I would give my best friend if they were to ask, what would you say to help me get that face-to-face interview? Here's what it is. First, understand that in a hiring process, you are the salesperson. You are also the product or service that you are selling. Does that make sense? You are selling yourself, so you are the salesperson. The number one piece of advice that I would give a salesperson if they're not selling something is I would ask them, well, are you asking for the sale? So that's what I want to ask you. In the phone interview, what you really are looking for is not the job. You can't get a job with a phone interview. What you're looking for is to move to a face-to-face interview. Really, what you're looking for is to leave that phone interview with a clear future. In other words, you and the other person on the phone know exactly what the next steps are and what the timeline is for those next steps. That's really what you want in a phone interview anyway, right? So you want to ask for the sale, with the sale being the face-to-face interview. So how do you do that? Well, there are a couple of different ways that you can phrase it. If you're talking to the decision maker on the phone, that's best case scenario. What you want to do is at the end of the conversation, you want to say, well, you know, I've really enjoyed talking with you today about this position, and actually I'm more excited about it than before we talked. Now that you've given me more information about the position, I'm actually very enthusiastic about the possibility of working with you. Is it possible to talk in your office next week sometime more about your needs and get into your needs in detail, as far as the needs of the company, the needs of the department, your needs in particular? What are you looking for, and what can I help you with, and is it a good fit? I'd really like to talk with you in more detail about that. Is there a time next week that we can get together in your office to talk about this in more detail? That's it. Now that's a soft sell, and it is an easy way to make sure that something's on the calendar. Now, sometimes you're not talking with the decision maker. Sometimes you're talking with an HR professional or a recruiter. In that case, there's a couple of different things that you can do. You can ask, is it possible for me to sit down with the decision maker sometime next week to talk about their needs, the needs of the company in particular, and what the needs of the department are, and really where they want to take the department. Now, with that, you probably are not going to get a yes, but it's worth a try. However, what you can do is you can put in their minds a decision as to whether or not you're moving forward in the process. And the way that you do that is, while you're talking to them at the end as they're wrapping up, you say to them, is there anything else that you need to know about me before you make a decision as to whether or not I move on in the process? And that's worth repeating. Let me say it again. Is there anything else that you need to know about me in order to make the decision as to whether or not I move on in the process. So at that point, they will either say, well, actually, yes, there is one more thing that I need to know, and you're asking for clarification, and they'll give you that. Or, even better, they'll say, no, I think I've got everything that I need to know at this time. And then you ask, when can I expect to hear from you next? And not what are the next steps, because what are the next steps is something that everybody else asks. But if you ask, when can I expect to hear from you next? If they say, you should hear from me by next Wednesday, then your answer should be, so if I don't hear from you by, say, Thursday, can I give you a call? And that way you're getting their permission ahead of time to give them a call on Thursday if you don't hear from them by Wednesday. Now keep in mind, when you're asking them, is there anything else that you need to know about me before you make a decision as to whether I move on in the process? What you're doing is that you are somewhat forcing them on an unconscious level to make a decision about you right then. And believe it or not, when they're talking to you, they have a better opinion of you than after they get off the phone with you. And so while they're talking to you, have them make that decision, because it's probably going to be more positive. It's going to be a yes. And so when they say, no, I think I've got everything, I think we're good, that probably means you're moving on in the process. And that's when you ask, when should I expect to hear from you? And then they will probably, this has actually happened to a lot of my clients, where they'll initially say, well, we've got a lot of other people to talk to, and we've got, we're in the beginning of the process, and so it might take a couple of weeks before we get back with you. But once they start asking these questions, by the time they've finished, the HR person has finished answering those questions, they're saying, you will hear back from me by Wednesday. In either case, you're definitely going to hear back from me by Wednesday. In other words, they're making up their mind right then. Even if they've got a lot of other people to talk with, you want them to make up their mind about you right then and there. All right? That's the one piece of advice that I have for you on a phone interview to get you to that face-to-face interview. That, above everything else, asking for the sale, is going to get you that face-to-face interview. I hope this has helped. And if you would love to talk with us about working with us in how to get that face-to-face interview, how to get the phone interview to begin with, if you're not getting enough phone interviews, then you need to give us a call. It's 816-600-2478. Or if you're out of the country, even inside the country, feel free to email me. I will always email you back. It is Tammy, Tammy, at beyondjobsearching.com. That's it for me today. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye now.